On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're touring 3 maximalist homes full of personality. First, we tour a New York City townhouse, where an extraordinary collection of art and eclectic design elements bring modern glamour to early 1900s elegance. Next, we head to Washington, D.C. to tour a 480-square-foot studio, where personalized DIY projects and clever IKEA hacks turn a small space into a maximalist masterpiece. Finally, we visit a home in Augusta, Georgia, where layered patterns, family art, and antiques come together to create a deeply personal and stylish space. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hey, Homeworthy. Hi, I'm John Dempsey. Welcome to Behind the Blue Door. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm John Dempsey. I am a cosmetic industry advisor and executive. We are here in New York City in my townhouse in Treadwell Farms. Welcome to Behind the Blue Door. Behind the Blue Door actually is the name of my book, which I published about 16 months ago with Azuline Press, which is a photographic series of my collecting, design, and artistic ethos. And the book, basically a peek behind the actual blue door in front of my house, which is a blue lacquered door, the way I think, the things that inspire me, the things that I love, began as a complete gut reno. And when we started doing the house and working with my dear friend B.B. Monahan, my interior designer, and Joseph Carnaccia, my architect, we wanted to try to reestablish some of the grandeur of the early 1900s of the house. And in trying to figure out what the house should look like, we decided to start from the ground up and start with the carpets. These are stark carpets in the designs of David Hicks. And my friend, the muse of John Galliano at Decor, Suzanne von Aschinger, who was a model, was wearing these kick-ass Christian Louboutin boots, which were in electric cobalt blue, gold, red, mustard yellow, and navy. And I thought, give me your shoes. I took the boots, took them to the carpet maker, and we began the color palette of the house off of the Louboutin boots. So literally, we stepped into it from fashion. So here we are, we're on the second floor behind the blue door, and let me show you around, actually. So you'll see the room is centered on this carpet, which is a David Hicks carpet inspired by those Christian Louboutin boots of my friend Suzanne, of all the color palettes of the house. And it's anchored with this sweeping Willie Rizzo couch that was in my parents' apartment back in the 70s. It used to be brown pig suede in crushed blue velvet. And so this sort of sweeping blue room, which is basically set up as where I generally have events or parties or things, or after dinner parties and such. And there are so many things. You'll see on this wall, a wall of black and white photography with, paparazzi, fashion, glam shots. So there's Cher wearing Bob Mackie. That's Bette Midler and Mick Jagger. That's the Holy Trinity of the supermodels shot by the late Roxanne Lowitt, Catherine Deneuve, Ellen von Unworth, the black and white ball with Mia Farrow and Frank Sinatra, Bianca Jagger on a horse at Studio 54, David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, Kim Kardashian, Alfred Hitchcock, on and on and on and on and on. If we go around here, there are a pair of hands by Freydeberg from Mexico City, which I personally love. This is a Willie Rizzo bureau. On top of it, you see this is Marcel Wander's Baccarat, Vanini, Antiquities, Murano glass, Dome, and Hervé van der Straten lamp. This wall is all color photography as opposed to the other wall. This is all black and white. Once again, with lots of celebrities. There's Pam Anderson, and there's Gloria Vanderbilt, and there's Lizzo, along with photographs by Miles Aldridge and Horst. And this chair I found at the curated shop in Los Angeles called Just One Eye. And it's an artistic piece. I don't know actually who the artist is who did it. I think it was a series of like 4 or 5. But I think it's pretty cool, actually. The Cotis coffee table, you have a mix of a lot of fun stuff. So this lion or panther head was on the desk of Brad Gray when he was the head of Paramount Pictures. And this hippopotamus I found in the Pousse in Paris. This is all this Dutch sort of pottery and ceramics from a place called Wouterhouse. If we look up, actually, that is the Philippe Starck Baccarat chandelier with blue denim shades. At this point here, that is a Georges Chevalier Baccarat starburst mirror on top of a mirror, surrounded by 2 vintage turquoise foo dogs, coupled with 2 vintage navy blue pugs. And I'm lucky to have a fireplace on the first floor and on the second floor. And I love the focal point of this fireplace, in which you have a good friend of mine is an artist named Hugh Finlanter, who's known as Mr. Flowerheads. And he's a Jamaican-American man who lives in Milan, who works in Murano and creates these incredible, fantastical creatures and heads. So this is from Mr. Flowerheads, 2 fish from him, because after all, I'm a Pisces. We go on, and then we have all up on the surrounding sound here. All these are pinups from David Bailey from the 1960s, and these amazing Ruan Hoffman plates. And we come into the atrium area here, which is really a continuation of the jungle theme. You have this Degorny custom screen. You have more animals, Hervé van der Straten coffee table, lots of birds, because we're in an atrium, and peacocks, all an homage from this Ren Hong photograph, which was an iconic photograph from a Chinese activist, and which is banned to be seen actually in China. But this photograph, particularly I went to Germany to go pick it up, but this photograph with the peacock actually carries into the idea of these birds and creatures. So you have, peacock here, peacock there, a toucan, more Murano, lots of books, objets, monkeys, photographs of myself. That is a photograph in this room in front of the bar. It's all done with Polaroids being mashed up. So it's done by Gilles Descamps, who's a photographer, a well-known photographer. And this is one of my favorite things. This is the Sostas Memphis totem from the mid-'80s, which is rare. And you even can see like this theme of family or jungle, that this pillow of this leopard was needle-pointed by my late grandmother. So, having something always from the family, or something from the past, or something from the present, constantly changing. In the adjacent room is my red library, which is all red, orange, and curated with everything framed in gold frames and saturated color. So it's inspired by the nightclubs of Robin Burley in London. Actually, the greatest compliment I've ever been given was that my home looks like a club in London, because that's what I was aiming for. But You have, once again, a mashup of mid-century modern, new 21st century pieces, family heirlooms, objets, architectural pieces, touches of Memphis, Sostas, and of things of entertaining and at ease. So this is my red room library, and it's set up like a cabinet de curiosité. So we actually curated and arranged all these objects like an old cabinet of curiosities. And it's grounded once again in this David Hicks amazing rug with these shades of red and this Hermes covered Christian Liègre orange couch. And here you have Guy de Rougemont cloud tables, Eric Schmidt custom chairs, and photographs that are a little bit more surrealist, a little more pop. You have a couple black and whites here. This is a photograph of Andy Warhol by my friend Jonathan Becker. That's Cyndi Lauper. That's Elsa Martinelli by Willie Rizzo with the Italian flag on her lids. This monkey here actually was in my mother's living room growing up. So this monkey's actually gone everywhere with me. We have here more Memphis, more Vanini, more sculpture. That's the original artwork of Diana Ross on the cover of Interview magazine, Salvador Dali, animals, objects everywhere. And these photographs here are done by an artist named Breakawaith, who is an artist who created the movement of Black is Beautiful. You'll see his images as well. Books, 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 and more books. We have another fireplace, actually. I have 3 fireplaces. And the peacock from the atrium shows up in the hearth of the room. There's a surrealist photograph that looks of Marilyn Monroe. You have another hue owl, stallions, robots, Fornasetti, LV collaborations. My mother's Minaudier from Judith Lieber. Red is good luck. So I believe, and you'll see around the house, that every room has a piece of red in it, or a touch of red. So it's good luck. And it's dramatic, and things look great with it. Not actually on this chair, this is a needlepoint of one of my mother's paintings. So that's and this as well. So family inspiration is everywhere. We come here to this Italian desk in this sort of iridescent sort of blue. More objects, a lot of them unique pieces of work. This here is a Gio painting, actually an original work, which I think great. This lucite chair that was done by Jeffrey Bradfield. This is a Jouet owl. This is just a fabulous chair, and you'll see that these drapes and everything, all the wall coverings go together. Or on this wall, this is a painting by a woman I know named Laurence in Paris of Diana Vreeland. This is done by Stephen Klein. This is Nicki Minaj as a blue Marilyn Monroe. And over the door into the powder room, that is a shot of a Chinese model for the cover of China Vogue, shot by Stephen Klein as the Chinese Marilyn, and which I think is super fun. And you've got Liz Taylor, Bert Stern, Donatella Versace, done by Miles Aldridge. That's Mario Testino. And then this is fun. This is a powder room. And in this powder room, just has sort of some personal touches as well. You'll see here that chandelier was the chandelier in the house that I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. So I brought it here. It's an Orfor. And on the wall here are all these fun illustrations by my friend Donald Robertson. And they're things that were my Christmas card or things that reflect moments in my life with this fabulous mirror. And even walking in, there is a painting of my mom and a Carl Springer bench and more vases and more things and a vintage hourglass mirror. And if you look at some of the expressions of some of these things, they have certain things. This is hell decor with spending all my money on the house. That's a picture of me when I was working at Mac, and this is my Christmas card, and Lady Gaga was the Viva Glam spokesperson, so a fantastical vision of my daughter, Marie Helene, myself, and Lady Gaga. I don't know, it's just fun stuff. Another door, because behind every door there's something unique and different. These were all illustrations of the Met Ball that were done by Donald. This was the punk year. So you see, Anna Wintour with a mullet, Elbert Ebaz, and so on and so forth. That's the guest powder room. I have an extensive collection of many, many, many different things, but the one thing that I have been most passionate about since honestly my early 20s is style, fashion, and beauty photography. It sort of sits within the world of my chosen profession. And around the house, we have over 800 images on the wall from some of the greatest fashion image creators and cultural iconic subjects that have sort of circled in and out of my world or my childhood aspirations of being part of. It's inspired by glamour, bold, big personalities, and legends who have been here, are here, or maybe are not with us any longer. And I love the idea that all these legendary style icons sit or face each other on my wall, having a conversation with each other. And that's sort of my mantra of how things sort of fit together and work together. Impossible mashups or conversations between people or eras that weren't necessarily at the same time, but very much had a core philosophy that ties it all together. So now we're heading up to the third floor, which is my floor, where I live and work. You'll see more gallery-style artwork, Guy Bourdin, Lindsay Lohan. And one of my favorite little nooks and crooks in the house is another guest bathroom. This is the Dita Von Teese bathroom. So if you come in here, this is a wallpaper designed by my friend Donald Robertson of Dita Von Teese, and sexy sort of Greta Garbo legs and just, I don't know, a lot of whimsy and fun and sort of a conversation piece, because it seems everything here starts a conversation. And if we go up the stairs here, there's some things here that are important that I point out. This is the photograph of Suzanne von Echinger, the person whose Christian Louboutin boots inspired the color theme of the house. My bedroom, all glam. The Isabelle Giroust eye mirror, which is over the bed. The cabinetry are all red lacquer. You have a portrait of me as a monkey in a Tom Brown suit, done by an artist named Marc Gagnon. There's the Orlitsky gorilla. And then this great Colombo chair and lots of imagery of lips, eyes, the royal family, sort of a mashup. We even did a cabinet of curiosities where the TV set are with this fabulous leopard that was a gift to me from my friend Aaron, and more monkeys and more vases and more things. And as you can see up here, another Mr. Flowerheads. The bolster of the bed in this sort of animal print, giraffe actually, which corresponds to the fashion photograph by Willa Rizzo of Giraffe in the 70s. The lamp over here is Guy de Rougemont. And these are Polar Crespi, this lamp and these cloud side tables. And then going into, I guess, my ultimate indulgence is the closet. which is packed, and it's all organized by color. And this is fall, spring's in the basement, and we flip it. But you can see, and portraits of me, people that have designed clothing for me. I'm obsessed with eyeglasses and fragrance. In my former life, I actually helped to build and create the Tom Ford beauty brand. And now I work with many companies and have had the good fortune to discover amazing products like this Dries Van Noten Soie Malike. It's one of the people I work with. It took me years to figure out actually how I wanted to look and how I wanted to dress. I think when you're young, you should try and do whatever you want to do. I mean, there's so many stages of our life. So, I was a club kid in my earlier years. I was fashion obsessed. But I think over time, find the things that you feel comfortable in, that you think reflect your own personal aesthetic and style, and stick with it. Actually, this just arrived. This is a custom Xenia safari jacket. I'm really fond of safari jackets, so this just arrived. I love that. But, a Berluti leather jacket, a Loro Piana blazer. I mean, I love biker jackets. And by the way, there's some more animals hopping around here as well. So it's the jungle theme continues. In the office is an homage to Paris and the time that was sort of probably the most influential period of my life when I really discovered what I loved about style and fashion and my own personal style. And the office is centered around a map of Paris on one wall and photographs from great French photographers and iconography from Paris. Once again with Ruin Hoffman plates, but this time all in French with French obscenities. Every room has an attitude. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It has a sense of humor. It's maximalist in its execution, but almost feng shui and minimalist in terms of its core essence and idea. And that's sort of my left side, right side way that I think. Then in this hallway here, once again, more photography. That's a photograph of myself when I was 21 years old by Joseph Karsh. This was the cover of Women's Wear Daily Beauty Biz. Did a profile on me years ago. I love, 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 love this piece by the Carpenter brothers. Hell is empty and all the devils are here. Sort of a mantra to live by. David Watts, a monkey, of course. We enter into my very messy office. And Murano chandelier from the 60s. And the wall covered with a map of Paris. And it used to be very minimalist. There was nothing on it. And like everything, I just start filling it up. And this is a photograph of Picasso by Julien Clerc. There is the office of Diana Vreeland. This is a piece of original art by my friend Donald Robertson of an Hermes gas station in Texas. On this wall here, this is a Guy de Rougemont lighting fixture. You have here Niki de Saint-Phal, that's Brigitte Bardot, François Hardy, who was the ultimate iconic French rocker chick. And one thing I didn't point out in every room, there's a portrait of the room done by an artist named Jane Black. So this is her portrait of my office, but every room has a picture of itself by another artist. This is my desk, this is my files, these are my papers. This is where I have to multitask and do lots of things. And it's more eclectic. And the thing in my life that inspired me the most was living in Paris and being in Europe. So this room captures that. It's a tiny room. This is a portrait of Isabel Toledo, who passed away a few years ago. And Ruben did this for me with Isabel. And he did this sort of as a Dada-esque sort of photograph. So that was a personal gift. I have family things. I mean, there is a sentimentality to me. It's not all just, glam. This is my daughter, and this is a frame that a friend of mine gave me. And it says Liebling, which is her nickname for me in German, which means darling. And that's my daughter. My dad passed away, nearly 3 years ago, and that's the remembrance of him. So I just keep it next to me. Well, the structure of the house is thematic, and there are definite moods and personas and touch points of each floor and color waves. As you enter into the first floor, which is basically welcome to the jungle, it is a floor encompassing, the kitchen, which has sort of a high glam impact and a collection of every calendar Fornasetti plate that was ever done, working into a dining room and a sun room with leopard carpets, cheetah prints, and all sorts of a menagerie of jungle cats and wild animals in crystal, ceramic, silver, gold, dome, lalique, baccarat. So it's that sort of mashup of all these sort of wild creatures. So that's the floor that begins entering into the house and setting the tone for what you're going to see. This is the first floor, and this is the entry hall, and you can see photography is everywhere. This is a Horst photograph, Dufy, Guy Bourdon, and here's Giselle Bundchen, Marilyn Minter, and Dua Lipa entering us into the house on a leopard carpet ride with a photograph of me, vintage 1998. And we come into this room, which is my dining room. No, these things are not on the table when we're eating here. But this is sort of an animal menagerie of just great collectible things, all with sort of some provenance or interesting backstory in terms of the artists or who did them. I'm attracted to animals and life. This is a rhinoceros that was done by Willie Rizzo in Paris, which I'm particularly fond of. This Hervé van der Straten lighting fixture, and on this credenza that was done by Patrick Nagar, you have this graphic Rankin eye, a Roe Etheridge photograph here, Guy Bourdon, and this cat is from Studio Jobs. More gorillas, lots of gorillas. This is a photograph that was done by my good friends Inez and Vanud. Cabinets filled with family memories and objects and ceramics and plates that go back a long time. And here, the main floor dining room fireplace, this pop sort of blue electric Hervé van der Straten mirror, surrounded by whimsical Ruben Hoffman plates, like Shit Getting Out of Hand and Bad Idea and Bye. And so with a pug and a monkey and an owl and a tiger and a mythical beast. So it's eclectic. This is a Vincent Daré chair in blue, of course. Fornasetti pillows. My original interior designer, B.B. Monahan, helped me put all this together, and I invite into the house about 2 times a year this amazing stylist who styled my book named Mieke ten Have. And what we do is we move everything around. So we move objects, we reorient things. Sometimes I got too much stuff since she was last here, so we need to simplify it down. And then I also bring my art curator, Heather McKenna Pardo, in, and we rehang a lot of the art. So, because you see it differently when it's in a different context. And then this room here, which you can see the backyard actually out here. And there's a lion, of course, outside, but normally in season, this is a beautiful sort of garden setup. But once again, mythical beasts, whether it's a bull. This is a Fornasetti table. This is an artist that we found in South Africa during the pandemic that I bought the work sight unseen. And it arrived, and it's way bigger than I thought it was. These two chairs here were the Eames chairs that sat in my father's mid-century office in Cleveland, and I made them yellow. This one thing, which I didn't realize, when you look at the front door, you see that door knocker? That was the door knocker on the house that I lived in since I was 2 years old. So I took that when my father passed away almost 3 years ago. When we sold the house, I took the door knocker and realized that somehow that door knocker had a pug. And I never had a pug or thought of a pug, yet it was there. So things seemed like they were haphazard, but everything actually arrived with some rhyme or reason. So that's interesting. The fourth floor, which is the floor for the ladies in my life, my daughter, MH, who is 16 years old, has her bedroom, and you have also 2 guest suites where you discover the colors of pink, green, and yellow, and you're exposed to the paintings of my mother, Renee Dempsey, who is a painter who has been doing decorative arts for over 60 years and shows her work at Bergdorf Goodman. So it is a very personal floor. It's a more feminine floor. It's a floor that's created for the ladies and all those who come to visit, because I have a lot of family members who come to visit. So here we are on the 4th floor. This is a giant Miles Aldridge telephone call photograph, which I love. And these are Tim Walker's pastel pussycats and Sylvie Blum's sort of fashion photographs, Hans Slonim, and more fantastical rabbits. If we go into here, in the guest suites, these gates are here because this is a tour in real life, not a fictitious. This is not a staged. This was not staged. This is actually in real life. And here's one room, and as you can see here, these are my mom's paintings, and they're super colorful. She had a huge influence on my life. Still does. And you'll see this lighting fixture that comes from Paris is the smaller version of the one that's actually in the Red Library. The wedding photograph of my mom when she got married many, many, many years ago. But once again, a family-inspired room. For me, home is my center. It's my place where I can be myself, have my own space, express myself however I feel like expressing it, relax, be inspired, be stimulated, and at the same time create an environment that allows me to think and envision of the future and things that I can push the boundaries on in my personal life. It's my project that never ends, because it never ends. Things are coming in and out of here all the time. I rehang the walls 2 to 3 times a year. I reorient and restyle a lot of the objects and things in the house to shake it up and to give other things an opportunity to come forward and be seen. One of the things is when you come here, I think you get the big idea, but the details matter a lot. And sometimes the tension is the big idea and actually paying homage to the individual pieces.
Hi Homeworthy, my name's Ashley and welcome to my 480 square foot DC studio. I'm so excited to show you around. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name's Ashley. I'm a historian, and welcome to my 480 square foot studio in DC. So I've lived here for almost 2 years, and it is rent controlled, and it's an older building. So I knew that it had great bones, it had great light, and I really liked the space in general. And it had the potential to be more. And so that's what I was really looking for. I was looking for something that was affordable, but also functional. And it was originally just one big room, a studio. And I knew that I could make it more and I could do a lot with it. I didn't really renovate anything. Everything is still renter friendly, but I knew that I could do a lot doing renter friendly projects throughout the apartment. I wouldn't say that I have one particular decorating style. Mainly, I just love color and I love pattern and I love texture. And so I love combining all of that together. And I just kind of started with the giant pink bookshelf. I knew that that was really the statement piece that I wanted, and I wanted to create a built-in feel that would also give me the feeling of having multiple rooms so that my bedroom wasn't in the middle of my living room. And so I started there, and then once I constructed it and I painted it pink, it really just kind of brought it together and inspired me to really lean into the color and kind of that really maximalist, fun vibe throughout the apartment. I have a lot of DIY hacks in the apartment. Almost everything is kind of a hack and something that I did, because the problem, or I guess I should say the challenge of a small space, is that it is hard to source appropriately sized and functional furniture for. So I definitely have done a lot of IKEA hacking, or just kind of furniture hacking in general. I have a closet system in my bedroom that gives me an incredible amount of storage. I have my coffee table that was actually a console table that I cut down to coffee table size because I couldn't find a coffee table that was narrow enough for my space. I do a lot of painting of furniture, of refinishing, adding cool hardware. My bar cart is a really fun IKEA hack that I did using pool noodles to give it a kind of scalloped texture. And so when you're approaching a small space, I hate the myths that you can't use color, you can't use a lot of texture or patterns, that you have to keep it simple. I don't think that's true at all. But I think what you do have to do is keep it really, really functional so that your space doesn't feel overwhelming and like all of your furniture and your items are closing in on you. Welcome to my living room. Obviously, the centerpiece of the room is my incredible pink bookshelf. This is an IKEA hack that I built myself, so I'm very proud of it. And I love the color. I think it sets the tone for the entire room. It's an incredible focal point, which is not the TV, which I really like. And it lets me display my favorite memories, all of my books that I need to reference for work, which is important, functionality. And it also provides additional storage, which again is so important in a small space. But I also love to display travel memories, and I do have pictures of myself on display on my bookshelf in my favorite destinations and travel memories. Somewhat controversial on the internet to have photos of yourself, but I feel like, if I was in a couple, nobody would have a problem with me hanging pictures of myself and my partner, so why not? If you solo travel, ladies, put a picture of yourself up. I also keep mementos from my travels. I travel a lot in Italy because that is where I do my research, and so I love to bring little mementos home and memories of my time there. And one of my favorite little things, I study the history of pharmacy in particular, and this is an antique pharmacy bottle from Italy, so I love just having this little piece of history in my space. So you may have noticed that I love chinoiserie, and it's one of the things that I use throughout the apartment to kind of bring all the spaces together and tie everything together. And again, this is just my love of history and art, and I think chinoiserie is absolutely beautiful. And my aunt actually goes to estate sales all throughout Florida and collects these for me. So I love displaying them around the apartment as vases, as storage items. I have them everywhere, anywhere I can put them basically. And I store lots of little bobs in them. This one actually hides all the extra IKEA pieces that you never know what to do with, so form and function. My living room is also where I work and where I dine. It was really, really important in this space for me to have a place to eat and not eat on my sofa. I think that brings, it sounds simple, but in a studio space, that's really, really important to have like a space to do different things so you don't feel like you're always doing everything from your sofa. And it feels very civilized to have a table to eat your meals at. And then I also, of course, work in this space as well. I do have a standing desk that I love, and my favorite thing, which you can't see because it's discreetly stored, is my walking pad. So I love having a place to also work and walk in the apartment. And then finally, I love in my living room is my bar cart, because this was a DIY that I created myself. And one of my favorite things about DIY is kind of figuring out how to recreate something with unexpected items. So the handle is actually a soap dish, and what gives the scalloped effect on the bar cart are actually pool noodles. So I love the problem solving of DIY and coming up with creative solutions for small space challenges. Also, it gives a lot of great cupboard storage. Inside of my DIY bar cart, the reality of a small space is that furniture often does double duty. So only one half is dedicated to glassware and the other half is storing lots of things that I need it to, that I won't show you because it's a little bit messy. But I do have some beautiful glassware that I love to store in here. And then I also have a candle obsession. So those are stored down there. I did not set out to have a green and pink apartment, which is why I started adding pops of other color. But as I started designing the space, I fell in love with this wallpaper. I think it is just absolutely stunning, and it's peel and stick, so it's renter friendly. It was incredibly easy to put up, and it was just beautiful. I love the little nod to cherry blossoms being in DC, but not kind of being in that obvious DC way. And then I found the matching drapes, and I think they are just absolutely stunning and kind of bring the room together. And I loved the pink and green together. I thought it was such a beautiful combination, and there's just kind of a hint of pink undertones in the wallpaper. And I wanted to bring that out through the room. So I love high-low. Not everything needs to be expensive and not everything needs to be cheap in your space, but sometimes affordable furniture has its place, and especially in small spaces, it's hard to find a good sofa that will fit the space and be attractive. And so this is actually a very affordable sofa from Amazon, and I replaced the legs to bring it up a little so it didn't look quite so inexpensive, and it elevated it a little bit. And then I added some beautiful velvet pillows, because velvet always elevates things, and some throws to just make it look not so Amazon. So I love a little bit of whimsy. I don't like to take myself or my space too seriously, and I found this disco croissant and I just absolutely love it. And when the light hits it, you get this wonderful like disco effect around the room. So have fun with your decor. And my disco croissant sits on top of my DIY coffee table. So this is actually a console table that I cut down to coffee table height. It's almost impossible to find a very narrow coffee table, but I knew I wanted one for this space for comfort and for functionality. And so all I did is I found this burled wood console table from Target, and I just cut it down with my handy dandy handsaw in my apartment. On the other side of my living room, I have my media console that I also DIY'd. This is a very simple IKEA Besta unit that I painted and added some new hardware to, the legs and the knobs. And then with kind of masking my TV, because TVs aren't cute, but they're a reality of life, I created a gallery wall around it to kind of distract. And again, I just love the mixing of textures and different styles of frames. And I have peppered through here some of my artwork, some historically inspired artwork, and some more images from my travels. So this mirror is my true love in life. I wanted an extra large mirror for the longest time, and I saved up for this one. It was definitely a splurge, but I think it adds so much light and space to a small space. Obviously, an oversized mirror is going to do that. And by putting it in the corner here, I love that from any angle in the apartment, you can see more of the apartment, which really gives that illusion of space. And then it bounces light off of my only source of light along this one wall into the rest of the apartment. So it was definitely an investment, but worth every penny. I love it so much. I think a home really comes alive when it feels like you, and it feels like a place that you want to be in. And so I think it just really needs to reflect you and what makes you happy, while also being functional. I'm really, really big on a space being equally beautiful as it is functional, because you do have to really live in it, and a home should be lived in and functional for you and your life. I don't know if I would consider myself a maximalist. I think other people definitely would. I'm not shy of a lot of items and a lot of color. I don't know that I necessarily kind of subscribe to these categories and labels of design. I think you can mix and match and you can do what you like. So I think in many ways I'm a maximalist, and then in many ways I take inspiration from lots of other different design genres and periods. I actually love living in a small studio. It feels so cozy. I love being in my apartment. One of my biggest fears moving to DC, I'm from Florida originally, where space is not a premium. You get a really big apartment in Florida. And I was really afraid that it would feel like it was closing in on me and I wouldn't enjoy being at home, because I am a homebody. And I actually think I love it more because it feels so cozy. And by putting the time and effort into making the space really functional and comfortable for me, and honestly, it brings me such joy to just look around the apartment and know that everything is a reflection of me and what I love. It's the perfect space to be in, and I love being in it. And so, yeah, I feel like a lot of renters feel like they can't or shouldn't invest in their apartment, but I think the reality for a lot of people, especially in cities, is that they have to live in an apartment. And it can be your space, and it can become a home, and it's a really great feeling. So this is my bedroom. You're probably wondering where I store all of my clothing, shoes, and accessories, and this is it, on display for everyone to see, like the beautiful works of art that they are. I know for many people, open shelving like this seems like a dusting nightmare, but for me, I love being able to see my clothing. If I can't see it, I don't remember that I have it, and I love getting dressed and kind of in my own open air boutique where I can pull all of my clothes, shoes, and accessories for the day. And so looking at it makes me happy. It does require slightly more dusting, but I think it's totally worth the effort. I also have here one of my DIYs that I did that I'm pretty proud of, because I have a headband addiction. It is my love of form and function. I love having something beautiful, but also functions to keep the hair out of my face when I'm working. And so I wear a lot of headbands, and I wanted a system to be able to store my headbands efficiently and beautifully. And so I actually created these out of IKEA spice racks. I changed the hardware to hang them upside down so that it could display and easily hang all of my headbands. So I'm pretty proud of this one. It was a very simple and easy DIY, but really works well. I wouldn't say that I have a favorite headband. I would say I like a statement headband, but I do love when they're jeweled and encrusted or just dramatic in general. They remind me, so this is another callback to kind of my love of history. They remind me of early modern hats and hoods that women would wear, specifically the 16th century French hood. And it's just a beautiful style that I love. So I'd have to say I think my favorite one is this one, because this probably most closely resembles a 16th century French hood, but I do love wearing these. It's a little callback to the past and the history of fashion. And you might notice that many of my shoes look the same, and I would say once again, it's my love of form and function. These are my favorite shoes. They're from Cezanne, but a couple French companies make shoes like this. And I just love that they're slingback because I don't get blisters, but they also have a little bit of heel for height, and they come in lots of colors. And I'm a big fan of patent leather because it scuffs less, and you have to walk a lot in the city, so you need shoes that are both beautiful and functional. Another thing I'd love to point out about the closet system is that this is great for renters because it is a tension rod system. It is also modular, so all of the pieces come apart and can work in any space, and you can arrange it in any way that you want. And so this has come through 3 apartments with me, and it's been in a dozen different styles and arrangements. And so I knew when I moved into this space that I had these components and I could do creative things with them. So on this wall, I went with more of a dresser setup with storage on top. And then on the opposite wall over here that flanks my bed, I decided to do a little bit more hanging storage and some more accessory storage on top. And this gives me a ton of clothing storage, and so I don't have to worry about my shopping habit. So on this side, I have more shoes and purses. You can never have too many purses. I also have my perfume, my daily perfume, so that it's easy to access and spritz on the go. I have one of my all-time favorite Kate Spade novelty bags, some more artwork that I created, and again, just some more storage. I think in a small space, it's really, really important to have both open and closed storage. Open storage is wonderful, but it is open and therefore always on display, and you have to keep it tidy. So you also need a fair amount of closed storage. Another thing that I did to really give myself a lot more storage in this space was I lofted my bed. And you're probably thinking a lofted bed is for college students, but anyone can benefit from a lofted bed. I only had to raise it up about 5 inches, and then I was able to hide that with a skirt. And I was able to slide a bunch of rolling boxes underneath to, again, give me more storage, which is especially good for seasonal clothing or things that I don't access a lot that I really need to have storage for, but I don't really need to pull it out every day. So my bed is one of my favorite spaces in my apartment. One, because I spend a lot of time making it very comfy and cozy because sleep is very important. But two, it's a really great space to have fun with texture, pattern, and color, which is what I love. My secret is that I have a white duvet, and then I love to switch out the pillows and accessories on top of it. And Rifle Paper Co. is one of my favorite companies. They're from my hometown. They're a woman-owned business, and they do a lot of beautiful illustrations, and their book illustrations are my favorite. So both this blanket and this pillow are Rifle Paper Co. And it's just kind of these whimsical little touches that bring me a lot of joy in my space. And then I love playing with texture and pattern to kind of show off these different little details in the space. And you can never have too many pillows on your bed. I know that some people will not agree with that, but I think it's a great way to have fun with texture and pattern and color. And you will never find me without at least 6 pillows on my bed. From here, we have my beautiful hat wall. As much as I love a headband, I also love a hat. And again, form and function, I needed something where I could see what I have, and I could also store them out of the way where they wouldn't get bent or messed up. And I think they're beautiful, so why not display them? And it's really easy for me to grab a hat and go. And so I do love this little hat wall. I know in the design world, a hat wall can be a little controversial, but again, do what works for you and what you love in your space. My favorite hat is definitely this hat. So there's a funny story behind this hat. It probably looks familiar. Gucci makes a gold papier hat like this that I loved for years. I had it. I think I wore it for 6 years. I wore it into the ground. And I was devastated when they released the new model of it. It wasn't the same. They had changed it and it wasn't as good. And I was in this tiny town in the seaside in Italy, and there was a woman there who handmade hats, and I saw this hat hanging across the room, and I asked her about it. And she said she's been making it for years. And I asked her, will she continue to make it? And she promised she would keep making it. So every few years I go to this little town in Italy and I buy one of these hats, and I wear it all summer long because it's very important to protect yourself from the sun but still look stylish. So next to my hat wall in my bed, we've got my bedside table, and this is another IKEA hack. This is the basic side table from IKEA that I painted, and I added cute little lucite knobs to in the shape of a bow. And I've got the practical stuff like my charging station. I've got a few decorative books and a little holder here. And I also have this lamp, which I really love. I get a lot of questions about this lamp. And again, high-low, I think is really important to think about, because a ceramic lamp is a ceramic lamp. You can get them on clearance somewhere at a flea market, but a lampshade, if it's cheap, looks cheap. So I will often spend all of my budget on the lampshade and then thrift something for the base. And so the base of this is just a thrifted ceramic base that I spray painted pink. And then this lampshade is from House of Hackney, which is an incredible wallpaper and fabric company in the UK that I absolutely love. So in this room, I went with a faux grass cloth peel and stick wallpaper in a nice light shade of pink because I thought it would complement the bookshelf well, which is kind of functioning as the other wall in this room. And again, it's peel and stick, so it's renter friendly. And I just love the little bit of texture that it gives. I wanted a little bit more of a serene space in the bedroom because obviously this is where you come to relax and sleep. So I wasn't going to go with a really big, bold all over pattern, but I thought the texture of the grass cloth had a really nice touch to it. And then I hung this piece of art that I actually created. It's just kind of like a chinoiserie illustration that is based on a historical chinoiserie print. So on this side of the bedroom, I have the rest of my El Varley closet system from IKEA. And as I mentioned before, it has all sorts of different combinations that you can do, which is why I really, really like this system. And I went with kind of maximum storage on this side. So this is the real basis of my closet over here. But I also added some more hidden storage, and I can hang skirts, blazers, dresses, jackets, and shirts, everything over here, no problem. And I'm still able to access it. It's not the most spacious area, but I was able to squeeze it all into the apartment. So I was really happy that I was able to get this in, because this is able to hold the bulk of my wardrobe where I can see it, where I can access it. So I am a big believer that your rugs need to be bigger than you think they need to be. Even in a small space, your rugs need to cover the entirety of your room, and the whole rule that your furniture is supposed to be on all the legs of your furniture is supposed to be on your rug. I do live and die by that rule. And it has helped me when working in small spaces to make them feel more balanced and bigger. And also, don't be afraid to cut your rugs, especially if you're in a small, weird space. I actually had to cut this rug, don't tell rifle, but I did have to cut it here along the edge of the bookcase in order to get it to fit. Honestly, it works great for the space, and don't be afraid to cut your rugs. So this was kind of an awkward space in the apartment where the bedroom really ended before the living room began. I had my gallery wall, and I wasn't really sure what to do here. I wanted to be careful not to overfill the space, and so I found this stool at Home Goods on clearance, and I kind of just loved the texture and the color. And then I already owned this chinoiserie ginger jar, and so I thought this would be a great way to kind of break up the space. And just the idea is to kind of visually hide the side of this and to transition into the living room space. So I am a historian of early modern Europe, and my area of focus is specifically Italy and the history of science and medicine. And I look at specifically how women collected, produced and reproduced medical knowledge through early modern recipes. So I look at a lot of really fun and interesting documents written and passed down by women for generations. I take inspiration from everything that I see and come across, but I take a lot of inspiration from just being a historian and looking at historical spaces and places and artwork. And so I love pops of color, I love texture, I love architectural details, and so I try to take those inspirations everywhere I find them, whether it's in the archive or at a museum, into my home. But I try to reinterpret that in kind of a fun, colorful, playful way. So from my bedroom, we have my entryway, which then leads into the bathroom. And the entryway, I really wanted to do something fun with to, again, I think it's really important to separate and delineate spaces in such a small space when you have no rooms, to create the feeling of rooms. And so I wanted to create the feeling that this was a separate space. And so I decided to do some painting in here, and I created this really fun scallop. I actually made this scallop with a bowl from the kitchen that I just traced along the wall using a level, and traced the top half of it and then painted from the top down. And I really love the way that it turned out. Again, I think it just adds a little bit of fun and whimsy to the space and gives it a distinct feeling. And to match the color, I painted my IKEA shoe storage the same color. You're probably wondering, she has more shoes than what we saw on the shelves, and yes, I do. But this is closed storage because these are the less attractive shoes. So they hide in here. And it's also a place where I can dump my keys and my sunglasses when I get home. And also, of course, I have hooks, because one of the biggest hacks in small spaces is hooks. You always need hooks. I added another cute rug into this space for functionality, you know, to just make sure your feet are clean when you enter. And then I did actually add a light up in this space, and this is really interesting. I really just zip tied this to the existing boob light that came in the apartment, and it works great. So, and then from here you lead into a walk-through, pass-through closet, which is really kind of a workhorse of the apartment and does a lot of serious storage for me. I have my hamper, I have my vacuum cleaner, I have my winter coats in the winter, and I've got cleaning supplies, a year's supply of toilet paper and paper towels, you know, just because we're all scarred from when that happened in the pandemic, and all of my bags. And then that leads straight into my little tiny bathroom. And I really wanted to have fun, or as much fun as I could, with this space. It is an old building, so some of the challenges in this bathroom was that there is no vent. And so I really wanted to do wallpaper, but wallpaper in a bathroom with no vent is a disaster waiting to happen. So I decided to have some fun instead, and I found these thrifted, really cheap, I think they're plastic ornate frames, that I took samples of wallpaper and I color matched the best I could with some acrylic paint. And I just painted them to create these kind of fun pops of color on the wall, since I'm not able to add a really fun wallpaper. I actually did retile the floor with peel and stick tile. that is not meant for the floor. The packaging was very clear about that, but I figured I was going to try it, and it's actually working really, really well. So I added a layer of painter's tape and then did the peel and stick tile, and then I did caulk everything, recaulk it myself, and added this cute rug on top. Another thing that I did is I had the tile in here is old. It's seen a lot, it's vintage, and it had that kind of built-in, tiled-in soap dish and toothbrush holder that were pretty unattractive. And so I actually found this floating shelf at my local hardware store, and I was able to carve it out and create a hollow in the back, and I just attached it right to the old soap dish, which kind of now acts as the brackets for this shelf. And this is so much more functional for me than the old soap dish and toothbrush holder. I also just attached a new mirror on top of the old mirror, and I spray painted the light fixture gold. And I actually found these floral acrylic discs, and I cut holes in them to kind of act as a little light feature in the space. My favorite part about the bathroom is this really fun, beautiful shower curtain that I found. I think it just adds a lot of color and texture and interest into this small space that I really wasn't able to do a lot with. So at this point, we're in the front of my apartment where you have the entryway, my closet, and bathroom, and then around the corner, you just saw my bedroom. But if you follow me, I'll actually take you to where the kitchen is. So once you walk through my living room, at the other end of the apartment is my kitchen. And I had to make the decision if I wanted the bedroom by the front door or by the kitchen. And I hope you agree that I think the front door was the better option. I don't want my bed to smell like what I'm cooking in the kitchen. So I thought that this layout worked better. And I like that the kitchen is not an open concept in this studio. It is kind of walled off in the back of the apartment. And it's a surprisingly good kitchen for this space. But of course, what I didn't like about it was incredibly beige. Countertops are not what I would have picked. The color of the wood is not what I would have picked. So without doing any kind of crazy vinyl coverings of the countertops, because I really don't think that that's super practical and functional, I wanted to see if I could kind of change the tone and color of the kitchen through just adding other colors. And so I added this really fun peel and stick backsplash to this side of the kitchen, and then to this side of the kitchen is where I really had a lot of fun. I added this fun citrus wallpaper, this beadboard and chair rail, and this pop of green, and some floating shelves, again, to display some more beautiful items, and then this cart to add some more functionality. Obviously, there's always an issue of storing pots and pans in small little apartments, and so this was kind of my solution for that. So the floor was one of my favorite solutions because, again, I worried about doing peel and stick tile on a kitchen floor. It just gets so much traction, food, water, everything falls on it, and I really think you need to be able to clean it well. And so I actually found this company that does these vinyl floor, basically carpets or mats that they call them, and they are perfect. And they just had one that happened to be perfect for this space. And so there's no peel and stick, it just lays flat on your existing tile, and I think it gives a great look. It looks like tile, but it's super, super functional and easy to clean, and it covers up the old, not so cute tile perfectly. Another thing that I did to add a little bit more personality and just fun into this space was I have been able to find pastel kitchen appliances, which is not as hard as you might think it is. So I love adding these little touches. And then I did find this pottery, again, kind of a callback to my love of Italy. This one says mangiamo, let's eat. This one says ciao bella, and this one says mangiamo again, which is just super fun and cute. For me, home is my sanctuary. Home is where I go to recharge from the world, where I can be myself and be comfortable. So I know for many people, home is hosting and bringing people into your space, but I think for a lot of people, home is that really personal space where you need to go to recharge and to just get ready for whatever's coming next in life. And so for me, that's really, really important to just have this space to come home to be a homebody, to watch my favorite movies, to work from home when I need to and it's comfortable, to have, my travel memories on display, to have artwork on display, to have my books nearby. All of that just is it's my safe place, it's my happy place, it's my home. Thanks, Homeworthy, for stopping by. This was so much fun to show you around my 480 square foot studio apartment, but it's time for you to go because I have another DIY project waiting. Bye.
Hey Homeworthy, welcome to Augusta, Georgia. I'm Lauren Robbins and I can't wait to show you my home.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name's Lauren Robbins and I'm the owner of Lauren Robbins Interiors here in Augusta, Georgia. I would describe my home as a warm, colorful cottage. So we found this house actually by accident. We weren't really even looking. We had a beautiful Tudor home that we'd been in for over 5 years, and one day my husband and I just happened to pop in just to kind of get a sense of, what could happen with this house. It was definitely a house that needed a lot of love and attention, and it was definitely going to be a big undertaking. And we walked in and most people couldn't see it, but I could see that the bones were there and it had so much potential. And we both looked at each other and looked at the size and the backyard and the location and realized it was a home that we had to take on and really make into our family home. Welcome to my entryway. This is one of the reasons that my husband and I decided to buy our home. I loved how open and bright it felt, and I knew that it was just a really warm and welcoming space that we could have a lot of people over when we were entertaining. One of my favorite features of the entry are these painted floors, which actually was a happy accident. We were in the middle of renovations and these floors were in really bad shape, and my husband was like, we're not replacing them. And so we had to come up with a creative solution. So I decided to have them painted by an artist who came from Atlanta. And what we did is we pulled in one of the darker tones that came off of the dining room and the lighter tone, which was off of our living room, kind of pulled those two rooms together and did this really fun diamond pattern, which I love. It feels really classic and updated, but also helps keep the entry feeling really bright. I love my entry because it's a collection of really wonderful just pieces that I've kind of collected all throughout my years as an interior designer and just throughout my travels as well. I found this really wonderful oversized urn at an antique sale, and a friend of mine who I was shopping with was like, you've got to get that. And I was like, what am I gonna do with this thing? It's huge. Like, I didn't know where it was gonna fit, but it's become one of my favorite pieces. It's so unique and beautiful. And one day I'll put it on top of a table, but for now it stays there. This beautiful Wang Bishop lamp, she is one of my favorite lamp designers, has wonderful colors and shapes, and this kind of sets the tone for the rest of the house. Tortoise kind of popping in here and there everywhere. Love this beautiful chest from Mr. and Mrs. Howard that I really place in a lot of our clients' homes. On top of my chest, I think it's really important in the entryway to have things that mean a lot to you. Of course, I have little pictures of my family, my sweet daughter, in a place that's really special to our hearts at the beach in North Carolina. I found this really odd and funky Murano glass porcupine. My husband doesn't get it why I have this in our entry, but I found it and I kept doing laps around this vendor stall, and it still was there, and I knew that if it was there after a couple hours that it was meant to be mine. And so he's followed me from several different houses and has just become one of the staples. I love seeing him, and I think he's just interesting, and I've never seen anything like him before. And then I always love fresh flowers in an entry. My friend Lisa Alpag with Liebird Studios out of New Orleans does these amazing ceramic bowls, and so I've used a lot of her pieces for decor. I've got a candlestick of hers, but also use her pieces for floral arrangements as well, which makes me so happy. I'm going to take you over here to another part of our entry, and this is not only something that's really interesting and beautiful, this antique umbrella stand that I won at an auction, but it's actually very functional. It holds canes. These were actually my husband's grandmother's canes that we've, kind of collected and inherited over the years, and then our umbrella when we're kind of out the door. But then these beautiful pieces of art. I love figurative pieces, and I just feel like they're moody and beautiful and kind of sets the tone for this really serene space right off of our entry. This piece of Telluride, Colorado, it's a really special place for my family and I. We visit there every year, and this is what we see every time we pull into town. It's in a beautiful box canyon, and I had a friend of mine, Elaine Burge, who's an artist, do this commission for me because it just brought so much joy to us, and I loved it. She really incorporated like fabrics into the painting, which she was like, I wanted to do that because like you work with fabrics every day and this is like your love, and it just makes me so happy because this is a place where my husband and I started dating out here. We bring our family, we've taught our kids to ski out here, and it's a place that we really love to visit. So welcome to our family room. This is the room where we spend most of our time in our house. Originally, those doors were the exterior doors for our home. And when John and I first looked at the house, they led to a small sunroom. And that was really the only family room that was in this house. And what we realized was there was so much potential for us to really pop back, expand the family room, add another porch, and really connect it to the kitchen. And so that was one of the things that we did in our renovation. Something that's really important to me was making sure that our family room and our kitchen were able to speak to one another. We're all constantly doing homework, cooking, entertaining, and everyone's kind of within these two spaces. So we really wanted to make sure there was this cohesive feel between the spaces. Green is my favorite color, and so this room is quite saturated with green. I've got these performance velvet sofas that look good but can also withstand the wear and tear of children with some of our favorite Hazelton House fabrics. I love the mix of a really beautiful traditional floral with more of a little modern animal print kind of mixed in everywhere. Once again, I encourage all of my clients to have art in their homes. I love art in my home from travels. This little wall over here is one of my favorite walls. This was a piece, the top piece was a piece that I got when I was visiting San Miguel in Mexico, and I found it at this little art stand, and I didn't end up buying it, but actually my mother-in-law surprised me and gave it to me one Christmas. And I'd had this beautiful portrait of, I don't know who she is, she just really spoke to me and she felt really beautiful and her colors were beautiful, but the two pieces worked really well together. So I had my framer actually use the fabric that's on the seat of this chair as the background for the art, so that way it kind of made this really beautiful collected space that all tied together, beautiful colors, but the stripe you can see at the bottom and the top of this kind of little collection, which I love. But my favorite piece in this room is this piece that my dad did. He is an abstract painter in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he pulled this out of his studio one day, and I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. I'm taking this. And so I stole it from him. Sorry, Dad, thank you. And really used it as part of the color collection in this room and did a little plate wall around it just to bring in more of a traditional nod to the space. So originally this room was white, and I loved it for a couple of years, but thought that it just felt a little stark and not really warm. So I recently grass clothed the walls of this room and painted the ceiling a beautiful blue. It's hard to kind of tell in this light now, but it's the blue that's in these lampshades, just to kind of make it feel a little warm and intimate. And as soon as we did, the grass cloth really gave it this room almost like a wood paneled feel. It feels really warm and cozy and inviting. It doesn't hurt that we also have a fireplace on during these winter months. But the grass cloth is this beautiful old school traditional grass cloth that just really kind of warmed and cozied up the space. We did do custom lampshades on these lamps, and basically what I did is I got the fabric that's on the counter stools in my kitchen and had it pleated so that the two rooms really spoke to one another. Like these two spaces are really close to one another, and so by pleating the lampshade fabric, it still lends itself to the fabric that's on the counter stools, but it has a really different feel and feels almost like an updated stripe, which we've really, really loved. So that was a fun little find. My back console, this is really kind of a nice little separation space between the family room and the kitchen. It has a collection, once again, of some of my favorite things. I love going through antique stores and finding little finds like this really great like vintage ashtray. I just think it had really beautiful colors and was so interesting. I always have a little vase around so you can pop in flowers kind of at a moment's notice. But this little space is really great. And we tucked these awesome antique footstools, which have been great, especially when friends are over. We pull these out. They're really close, but also can be tucked away if you don't have enough space during our regular, 9-to-5 lives. So. My personal style is very collected. Everything that I have in my home has meaning and is something that I've taken from trips or I've collected in estate sales or antique sales. And I really love having all of these beautiful layers in my home. My style that I use in my house and also with my clients is a mix, is more of a transitional design. So I love mixing darker antique furniture, pieces that you've collected from a grandmother or have inherited, and mixing it with modern art and really updated modern pieces. And now I want to take you into our kitchen. So our kitchen was one of those rooms that we knew we really needed it to be a lot bigger and really open. There were a few things that I definitely knew I wanted. I wanted a big window that looked outside so I could see the kids playing in the backyard. I wanted it to connect to our family room so I could see what was happening in day-to-day life, being able to help someone with homework, being able to help someone if they were playing a game or watching a show. So when we originally bought the house, the kitchen ended right about here. It was a narrow galley kitchen and just didn't really have space for a family of 5. And so what we wanted to do was we popped everything out and made it really feel cohesive with the family room. My inspiration for the kitchen is kind of an English cottage vibe. Like, I love the darker soapstone that we chose. It hides dirt, but it also, I don't have to be precious with it, which with kids and who love to cook and we love to cook, sometimes that's just like the natural progression of things. We also did really beautiful furniture detailing on the cabinetry, which makes it feel more cozy and more cottagey. And so that was really something that I wanted to evoke with the antique brass and just these English light fixtures as well, which are really fun. They're on a pulley system, which is so great. And my kids had a really fun time playing with those when we first got them. All of our cabinetry was custom designed by my team and made from a firm here in right outside of Augusta in Louisville, Georgia. And they worked with me and we just had a really fun time designing these cabinets. So I wanted it to be really functional for our family and how we live in our space. So our breakfast nook is one of the spaces that we use all the time. We eat breakfast and dinner here. And this is the space that I knew had to be beautiful because it was part of the main part of our house, but also has to be super functional with young children. This is a wonderful quadrilles fabric that I actually had vinylized. So everything just wipes right off. And then the fabric on the seats are is an indoor-outdoor fabric that I can clean as well. These are these amazing French prints that I actually had in my shop. And they sat there for years and years and years and no one bought them. And I just thought they were so wonderful. They're of all the zodiac, not all of the zodiac signs, but of the zodiac signs. And I just think that they have this beautiful blue color, which ties into the counter stools. And it's really, really kind of a fun little nod. And our kids love finding like which sign they are on the prints as well and kind of noticing all the details of the art. Moving over here, I won this really beautiful hutch at an auction and got it for a steal. And I thought it was going to be something that I was going to put into a client's home, but it ended up working really beautifully in our home. And I love it. It's just this beautiful piece of storage that's been able to display my plates. We use this vietri, which was actually founded by someone from my husband's hometown. And so I love being able to kind of have a nod to John's hometown in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, with her plates on display. I do love incorporating a piece. We have so much cabinetry in our kitchen. I love incorporating like a freestanding piece of furniture, just so it doesn't feel, it feels a little more collected in your home. So right off of our kitchen, we have our mudroom, and this is a room that gets a lot of love in our household. But one of the most fun features of this room is the bench seats that my husband and I designed this room around. These bench seats are from the original basketball stadium at the University of North Carolina, and we are big Tar Heel fans, and so this was super cool. These were the seats from Carmichael Stadium, and so we built our kids' cubbies around them, and we just absolutely love them. They've book bags sit here, kids sit here to take shoes on and off, and it's just been a really fun little feature of our home and adds a little bit of character to our home state. So as you leave the mudroom, there you come into our back entry, and this is where we come in, day out, and I wanted it to look good, but it also had to be really functional because we're constantly carrying book bags and golf clubs and basketball shoes. And so we did this really beautiful Philip Jeffries vinyl grass cloth, easy to wipe down and can kind of take the wear and tear of daily life. But I also wanted our entry to be welcoming, kind of feel like my children and have a lot of personality. And so one of my dear friends, Natalie Thompson, took these personality portraits of my children, and it just really encompasses just everything that they love to do, from art to basketball to guitar, and it just really reflects their personalities. And I love walking into our entry every day and seeing these pictures of them and really like how it reflects their little personalities. My journey into interior design actually happened by accident. I was in the event industry for a really long time in New York City, and then when my husband and I moved to Augusta, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And after having my first child, friends started asking me for their help with getting pillows together or maybe helping them pick out lighting for their home. And slowly but surely, I just happened to have more and more clients, and it really formed a business. And now we are a 6-person team here in Augusta, and loving doing our take on traditional design. So now we're gonna go through the breakfast nook into the bar. And the bar was originally more of like a silver pantry, something that was kind of a room that had a lot of unused space. So we reflipped everything. It's a little dark in here, but it's a beautiful space that's really a collection of a lot of our more fun, funky pieces of art. I feel like this feels like a little bit of a speakeasy in here. My husband is a really big music fan. My parents both grew up in New Orleans, and we love how this room and all of the artwork in the room really reflects our love of the town of New Orleans and music. So this bar is a wonderful transition between our kitchen and our dining room. It's a great space. I really feel like whenever we're entertaining, a lot of you will end up in here. It becomes like a really cozy spot where you can't even access sometimes, but it makes me really happy because it feels really warm and intimate. As you transition from the bar, the next room is our dining room, and this was a room that I originally kind of left unfinished. I didn't know what I wanted to do after we finished our renovation in 2022. And I knew that whatever wallpaper I chose, I wanted it to be right. And I finally went ahead and wallpapered this room, and I'm absolutely in love with it. It feels old and eclectic, but it's a cravat wallpaper that just is really whimsical. There's a lot of wall space in this dining room. The dining room's not big, but the wall space is there. And so I knew I wanted some sort of scene, but I didn't want anything super traditional. And I wanted something that probably not a lot of people would choose and felt really whimsical. And so this wallpaper kind of hit the nail on the head in that regard. It almost feels like it's like a plaster with like the old kind of terracotta feeling painting, but I absolutely love it. It's made me so happy, and it's really kind of completed the room. This beautiful Biedermeier piece is one of my favorite pieces, and a piece that I inherited from my mother-in-law when she moved from her hometown to the beach. It was just a piece that was probably a little too formal for her house now, but I love it, and it's become just a piece that I remember it the first time I went to visit their house and seeing it in their formal living room, and it's a piece that I knew would be really beautiful in this room as well. So I always encourage my clients, if you have like a piece that has meaning or evokes certain memories, to incorporate them into their house. Like, we can find a way to make it more modern and feel updated in today's homes. These chairs are also antique chairs that were from my mother-in-law as well. More traditional Queen Anne chair, but the beautiful burl wood And these chairs is what, to me, makes them really special. They're just so clean and light, and they have just like brought me so much joy too. Even though they're kind of rickety, I just love them. I can't part with them. So one thing that I really encourage people to have in their homes is collections. And this happened kind of organically, but I started collecting vintage lighters. I found one, this set here, this Italian set, at an estate sale one time. And then I kind of got a reputation for wanting to collect them. And so friends would find them at estate sales and send me pictures and ask me if they wanted to pick it up, or I'd find one on an auctioneer site and buy a couple. And so it's been a really fun little thing for me whenever I'm traveling, similar to my art collections. If I find a vintage lighter, I collect it, and I'm probably up to about 14 right now. But I love this in the dining room, just in this beautiful antique display case. And it's just kind of a fun little thing to kind of, and a talking point when people come into the dining room. I also love just having this kind of happen randomly. I had this rattan basket that has and pedestal that was in my shop, and it just happened to fall here one day. And I think we were doing a photo shoot for something, and I've loved it because I can see this window whenever I pull into my driveway. And so during Christmas, I put my children's small Christmas tree with their ornaments on it, and I could see it pulling in. I'll cut things from my yard, and it's just a really happy reminder of like fresh greenery, and it just kind of adds a little bit more of a casual feel to this formal dining room, which I absolutely love as well. The lighting in this room was just something I knew I wanted, something a little funkier. I think that's where I tend to lead. A lot of times I love tradition, but I always want something that not everyone's gonna have, because I don't want my house to look like anyone else's. And so I really was like, okay, I've got this very traditional round table Queen Anne dining chairs. How can I make it feel a little bit different? And so this beautiful plaster piece, it almost looks like it belongs at the beach, but it really has this like kind of fun, funky vibe that is a conversation piece, which I love as well. And then adding more light into this space are these beautiful sconces, and I just feel like they have this formal tone and picks up on the gold accents throughout the space as well. So actually the room that we're sitting in right now is my favorite room. This is the room that my family calls the pretty room. And it's just a room where I've kind of put all of my favorite things. I have my portraits of my children, a beautiful piece from my mother-in-law that I inherited. But my favorite piece, the one that's the most special to me, is the painting behind me that my children and my father did. He is an abstract artist, and one day they were playing around in his studio and started putting paints on canvas and stepping all over it, and it just really became a piece that I actually built the room around. So now we're coming into the living room, which my family affectionately calls the pretty room. But one of the things that I did with front rooms of the house were use these Forbes and Lomax switches. They just are really, really beautiful and have this beautiful brass detailing. Switches for on and off, and then you can do dimmer switches as well, but I feel like it has this old school aesthetic that I really wanted to portray in the house. As you move forward to the rest of the room, the painting over the sofa was actually my inspiration for the color palette in the room. This is a piece that my dad and my children did in his studio. As I mentioned, he is an abstract artist. He had a studio in our old home in Charlotte, and you know, sometimes when the children were bored, they just would go and play and make their own, you know, quote unquote mess. And I love this piece because you can see their little footprints. He had a canvas laid out on the floor, and all of a sudden people started taking paintbrushes and painting, and my dad and I looked at each other and we were like, oh my gosh, this is actually really good. And so we started to direct them a little bit, and I would hand my daughter a paintbrush with the end and put blue paint on it, and she would do the dots. And then one of my sons did the green, which we thought looked like grass. And so it was just so fun to kind of help them and let them play and explore, and it ended up being this really beautiful piece of art. And as soon as I got it framed, I realized, this is several years before we were done with the renovation, I realized that this was a piece that I could absolutely build a room around. And so I pulled the greens and blues for the sofa. It's a beautiful Highland House sofa with a Jane Churchill fabric that I had treated. so my children could come and stay in the space. This beautiful floral is an antique or is a clearance house, and it's a block printed clearance house fabric. And I just loved how it felt antique. It felt like it would be something that you would see in your grandmother's home. And this was actually a chair that came from my mother-in-law's house that I had recovered in this fabric, and it just is really special to me because I do once again remember her house having these beautiful chairs. I love the lines. They're big and cozy, but also have really feminine, like a skirt around the bottom. And I just love how this chair can really hold a large scale fabric. To us, our games are really important, whether we're playing chess or mahjong. We use this table quite often. And this is a piece that a friend of mine, actually one of my employees, was looking for some pieces for a client and knew I needed a game table, and found this piece, which I thought just fit perfectly here. And you can store, the top lifts up and you can store all the game pieces, and it can flip over to a backgammon set as well, which is great. Piano has become something that we have started to do in our house, and my daughter, I love how she plays piano every day and practices. I can hear it through my bedroom wall. And so this has become a fun little piece. It's got a little bit more of a mid-century modern vibe to it, which I really liked. And that was what we were looking for. So at this point, this has been really fun. And we pulled that clearance house fabric skirt into the seat of the piano bench, just to kind of make it feel a little more feminine and break up the wood against this wood antique chair. Mahjong, like I said, is one of my new favorite hobbies, and so I keep my Mahjong set on display, which of course I got in pink because it matched the rest of my pretty room. And then this was one of the finds. My husband makes fun of me because we have carried this throughout our homes probably since the beginning of our marriage, but I am a Tar Heel, and I loved this ram's head. Because that is our school mascot, and I found this at an antique sale and had to get it and just use it as a little table topper for whatever home we live in. So one of the things that pulls this room together is this Ushak rug, and Ushak rugs are something that I absolutely love. I probably have them in a majority of the rooms of my house, and I love this one in particular. It's got this beautiful pink salmon color, the rich reds and the blues, and you know, a lot of people kind of get a little nervous about Ushaks because they are, you know, they can be pricey, but they're natural material, they're wool, and so they're actually very easy to clean if you need to get a stain out of them. But what I love about them is that all of the patterns are so different, they're so unique, they bring in so much color and interest, and I think that, you know, the floor shouldn't be a space where you forget about. It should add color and life, and it should be something that draws your eye to it. And so I feel like Ushaks are one of my go-to pieces when I'm designing for my own home as well as my clients' homes. So I loved this fireplace. Originally when we moved into our house, all of the trim in this room and in the entry and in the dining room was a sage green. And I loved it. It felt very English, very cottagey, but it wasn't. I knew for this room I wanted to keep it bright and light and let the artwork and the rugs and the pattern really do the talking. So we kept everything in this fireplace original. I found these beautiful andirons at an estate sale, and I just thought they were so lovely and delicate. Usually andirons can kind of feel a little bit heavy and masculine, but I loved the floral filigree at the top, and I just thought that it was a beautiful complement to the flowers that we have in this space. I'm a big fan of a glass fireplace screen. My husband is not. He says that it doesn't let heat go through, but I kind of pull it aside. But it has a really clean finish, and what I do for a lot of my clients is cut the glass to size, and I found these brass bases, and that way you can have a fireplace screen for no matter what size fireplace you have. So once again, kind of pulling in my love of collections. I get my boys these julep cups every year for Christmas and for their birthdays, and they don't love them yet, but I think one day they will, or maybe their wives will. But then again, my lighter collection, these are some really fun lucite lucite lighters that I found, and I just kind of place them around everywhere. And they're kind of fun little story pieces that kind of bring up for different topics of conversation. One of the things that is really important to me is having art, whether it's original art or prints. Art to me just really makes a home feel really collected and tell a story. And one of the last pieces that I was waiting for in this room was this piece. I knew I needed something kind of spectacular because it's the piece that you see when you walk into the home and you're looking directly into this room. It really sets the tone for the room. And this is from a piece by Philip Morrisberger. He was a beloved artist out of Augusta, Georgia, who passed away several years ago. And I remember meeting with the team who sold his works after his passing, and kind of wanting to get more information on this piece. And I remember they said that this was Philip here. So he did a lot of self-portraits in a lot of his pieces, or he would always show up in a lot of his pieces, which is really fun. But this was a picture of him and his wife. And it almost to me feels like he's having this daydream about her. And I love like her doe eyes and just like her soft she just kind of melts into the background of the piece. And when I saw it, I'd already had my pink curtains picked out. I knew I had the pinks and the yellows and the blues from the piece that my dad and the kids had done. And so when I saw it, I just thought, oh my gosh, I've got to have it. And so this piece brought me a lot of joy, and it also made me really happy to have a piece by him because he was so influential in the arts in the South, and he was one of those people who I met him a couple of times, and he was always such a gentleman and so sweet. And so I love having this piece as kind of the focal point in our living room. So I'm always traveling, and I'm always going to markets and estate sales and antique shows. And one of the pieces that I found that I thought, once again, we're going to go to a client, were these antique plate. I was with my team in High Point, where we go for our furniture market, and we saw these two plates, and I just thought they were so interesting. I'd never really seen anything like them. I loved like the oranges and the blues, and then of course like this pop of pink. And I thought, oh, surely I'll find a client who will use these. And so we brought them home. I didn't even think about them for my house, and I brought them home after market and was unpacking my car and realized how good these pieces looked in this room, and realized that I had just a sliver of wall space that I could use them in. And so I had these brackets that we sell in our shop that just fit perfectly, and realized that unfortunately no client was going to get them. They were going to stay with me. So those were fun little finds that sometimes things end up working for a client, but other times they end up living with me for a little bit. So one of my favorite home design tips is to buy art wherever you go. It's one of my favorite things that I tell my clients, and I encourage them to buy pieces, whether it's at a street vendor on the side of the road when you're traveling to a different country, or going to a local art fair. I think buying art really makes your home feel collected, and every time you pass it, it tells a story of a place that you've been or a wonderful memory that you have. So off of our entryway is our powder room, and I always love treating a powder room like a little jewel box. I feel like it should be a fun little surprise. This one actually is perfect because it's right underneath our stairwell, so it feels kind of enclosed and intimate. But we did this really wonderful Odaline wallpaper, greens and purples, and it just has this really rich color. We pulled the green into the trim in the ceiling and then in the cabinetry as well. And then I just happened to find this really fun piece of art that I felt was so fitting and kind of a little just fun, have good taste in art and better taste in people, just a fun little reminder of a little life lesson. So this room is just a really fun room that just kind of came together and is a fun, whimsical surprise. So now we're coming into our master bedroom, and our bedroom is right off of our family room. And so it was really important for John and I to have privacy, but also be close. We wanted to be on the downstairs level. So we built this vestibule that has a pocket door and a closed door, and also made our walls really thick and insulated. So that way we wouldn't hear the sound from the family room if anyone wanted to go to bed a little earlier than everyone else. This room was originally part of the house. At one point it was an office, but it was really long and narrow and had an arched window that we didn't really love the architectural features of. So when we popped the rest of the family room and the kitchen back, we also decided to connect that portion or this office to the rest of the space. And we're able to widen the bedroom about 3 feet. And so this has just been a really nice space for us just to have it on the main level, be really close to what's happening with the rest of the house, and just, have this really wonderful sanctuary where we look out to our garden. Because we are on garden level, I wanted to pick out a fabric with flowers that felt like a garden. This is one of my favorites. It's a Cotton and Tout hydrangea fabric that just had these beautiful blues and greens. To me, I love color in so many other rooms of my house, but when I go to my bedroom, I really want it to feel soft and serene, and a place you can really just like relax. I feel like my brain can sometimes be working all the time, so I want my bedroom to feel like a really serene sanctuary. And so I keep everything really neutral and just add little pops of color here and there. We did green, once again being my favorite color. I took the green tones that I have throughout the rest of the house and really saturated it into this beautiful sage green, and painted the walls and the trim this color, and color matched the drapery panels in the Roman shades as well. So one of my favorite pieces in this room is this piece that my dad did in college. This is probably one of his earlier works that I have. And actually the funny thing is in our old family home in Charlotte, I went up into the attic one time and I found it rolled up. And it was something that he didn't even love. He didn't think was anything special. And to me, it just kind of felt like almost like an abstract version of like the world, like the earth. And I don't know, I just loved like the browns and the greens and the blues, and it just, I don't really know what it means or why I like it so much, but I think that the fact that he did it means a lot to me, but also like I love the softness and the colors of the piece. And so I pulled this into our bedroom because it kind of matched the tone and the feeling that I wanted to evoke in this room. Once again, when I'm working with florals and kind of leaning into more of a traditional room, I like to pull fabrics in from the bed into like a little chair. And so this is a chair that gets used often, whether we're reading or it just needs to be a place where I throw things, which ends up happening most of the time. I love this fabric, and I love how a great club chair can really show off a large scale floral print. Which I loved this Cotton. It's been one of my favorites for years. I also brought in these little beautiful butterflies. These are little hand-cut butterflies by one of my friends, Clarence Deaton. She's an artist out of Charlotte, and she and I went to college together, and she's been such a big fan of my work, and I've been such a big fan of her work, and they were, it was such a fun thing. She sent me a picture one day when she started working on these neutral butterflies with the marbling behind them, and she was like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've got to have them." And so I took some, sold some in my shop and put them in clients' homes, and they just are really make me happy, especially given that our room's right off of our garden, and I have a butterfly bush right outside of my window. I love the fact that we were able to pull the butterflies into the room as well. So one of the most unique pieces in this room is probably this Murano glass light fixture. Actually, this was a little bit of a happy accident as well. I had originally spec'd this piece from a vendor who finds pieces in Italy. I thought it had a down rod, and I thought it was going to be something that I would actually put in my dining room. But when I got the piece, I realized that it was only like a 12-inch drop versus like a 36-inch drop that I needed to make it into an actual chandelier. So I had to pivot and realize that it would actually be a really special piece to have in my bedroom. And as simple and as clean and serene as my bedroom is, this light fixture has also become like the statement piece. And that actually turned into a really happy surprise. So as we move from our bedroom into the master bathroom, this is kind of a fun little vestibule in an area where we had to work within the confines of the existing space. This was part of the existing of the original house, and this bathroom was a den at one point. And actually a funny story, when we first did our renovation, when we moved into the house in the summer of 2021, we decided to do the children's rooms upstairs first, because when we did the big renovation on the back of the house, I wanted them to have a space where they could go and feel comfortable in their room, because I knew there was going to be a lot of construction and a lot going on. And so while we were finishing the upstairs, all of us lived in this room. And it basically felt like summer camp. I had twin beds everywhere. The kids were jumping from one bed to the next. And it just ended up being a space that kind of brings back happy memories. Eventually this den got turned into our master bathroom. And so I had to work within the original footprint and the original layout of the space. So we put our cabinetry here. We had this window. So my husband's vanity and our vanities like flank the window. I was able to build a little vanity seat here. And then we turned our bathroom, an old fireplace was covered up and turned into our water closet. And then our shower we built out for the rest of the den as well. Okay, so now we're gonna head upstairs and see our kids' rooms. So now we're entering my daughter's room, and this was one of the rooms that we did at the very beginning of our renovation. We wanted the rooms to be reflective of each child's personality and really to be done while we were doing the rest of the renovation. So in my daughter's room, we picked this really fun, whimsical Luli Wallace fabric. She loved, at that time, she was out at like a nature school. She loved being outdoors and loved the beautiful florals out there. So we pulled that into her design with this beautiful scallop. The bedside tables are from Ballard Designs, which I work with often, and they've always been great fans and proponents of my work. And then this past Christmas, we got Eloise a record player, and we've just really loved music's a really big part of our family and everything we like to do as a family. And so all of the kids have little record players now and speakers, and so Taylor Swift is like on repeat whenever her friends come over, and so that's been a really kind of fun addition. It kind of makes her feel a little bit more grown up, and really loves having that. Another piece by Philip Morsberger, the artist that I mentioned, who's from Augusta. Not only did he do oils on canvas, but he also did these pastels on paper. And I just thought these were so fun and whimsical, and also had all the colors of her bedroom that I just had to kind of pick up a piece when they went for sale. So here we are in my son's room, and I loved this room from the minute that we walked into the house. It had this cabin feel, and what was so funny is my son mentioned to me one time that he wanted a fly fishing room, and I was like, okay, let's see if I can find some vintage fly fishing rods. It ended up that I got more into the vintage tennis rackets, which he actually has become quite the little tennis player, so it all feels very fitting. But I loved this room. I love the combination of Carolina blue and red, and then adding a pop of navy blue to kind of weight it. One way to make this wood paneling feel a little bit more modern was to paint the trim. I knew I would never paint this wood paneling, but I thought the trim painted just made it feel a little bit more updated, and really gave it a really cool, handsome vibe. The artwork in this corner of the room is all really special to us. My husband's grandfather grew up going to a small island in North Carolina called Durant Island. It's a hunting and fishing club that my husband's actually a member of now. And I happened to be at an antique map shop in Savannah and found a map that had Durant Island on it, which is like a small place. It was very hard to come by. And actually it pairs well with this watercolor that was his grandfather's as well, of Durant Island. And so I love having those two pieces together in that family history. And then I love this little Swanee, Tennessee. That's where my husband went to undergrad. And a friend of ours gave that to us at their wedding. They had prints made of Swanee when we were all together for their wedding. And I love that that's just kind of a part of all of my husband's history and family history as well. In this space, I love kind of having collections of things, a beautiful old antique chest with an updated lamp and a fun mirror. I love playing with textures. When you're coming into a room, a lot of people ask about how do I make like an antique chest that I've inherited from a grandmother feel modern and updated. And I think really pairing it with like a beautiful clean lamp and fun accessories and an updated mirror can make an old piece feel really new again. And so this piece has been beautiful, been loved and worn, but it does the job, and it holds all my son's clothes, which is great. Once again, music and record players are really big in our family. It's kind of fun to see what the kids are listening to through different series or different places in their lives. And so we've been loving getting them records and introducing them to new bands as well. So one of the things that's really important to me is incorporating art into my home. I happen to be really lucky that I have artists in the family. Not only is my dad an artist, but my grandfather also did a lot of artwork in his day. And my mom has had collection or pieces of his that we've incorporated into her home and to mine. And we found this piece in my grandmother's things. And it's just this beautiful scene of a little boy and his dog fishing. And, you know, it was in pretty bad shape when we found it, but I have a wonderful framer who really helped bring this piece back to life. And it's been one of my favorite little pieces to add to my son's art collections. My husband and I are not from Augusta, and it really made me really want our home to feel like a place where everyone wanted to gather. Nothing brings me more joy than having people over and letting people come and enjoy our home. And that's the whole beauty of why we bought this house and why we did this renovation, is to really make sure that people felt warm and welcome in our home.